Hello guys, welcome to the fiction series. Today we are gonna see, what if Naruto got harem with Black Widow, Nebula and Wanda? Part 5. If you want more awesome fanfiction like this, don't forget to hit that subscribe button. So without wasting any time, let's get into the video. The Wakandan Labs. Naruto, Chala and 4 Dora Milaje guards walked down a hallway. Once they approached the lab, the Dora Milaje stood at their side of the door, with the closest 2 bowing their heads and crossing their arms as they did, with Chala crossing his arms over his own chest in response. Shuri was standing behind a desk, smiling at them. "My king," she said cheekily, bowing to her brother. "Stop it, we have a guest. And I don't want you making me look bad," Chala said with a smile, as he and Shuri did a secret handshake greeting. "Hey, don't stop on my account," Naruto said, as he smiled at the siblings. "Oh, stop. You're practically family. Right, brother?" Shuri asked with a slight edge in her voice, as if daring Chala to say no. Chala nodded at this. "She is right. Especially since our parents like you too," he said. "Plus, if he had said no, I would have made him miserable," Shuri said, as she led them down into the lab. "You mean you don't already?" Naruto asked with a grin, making Chala laugh as they followed his sister. "You're lucky you're cute," Shuri said with a scowl, as they entered her lab. "So, what do you have for us?" Chala asked curiously. Shuri walked over to a table and picked up a small case. "These are communications that'll help you for your mission in Korea," she said, handing it to Chala. "They have an unlimited range and are equipped with an audio surveillance system." "What about me?" Naruto asked curiously. "There's one for you in there too, so stop whining," Shuri said firmly, still annoyed at Naruto's dig at her. "Oh now. I'm sorry. You know I'm just kidding around," Naruto said as he smiled and held Shuri's hand. Shuri smiled a little at this. "Fine, you're forgiven. Only if we go on a date when you get back," she said to him. "Done," Naruto said, as he smiled back at her and kissed her hand. Shuri giggled at this, before leading them to the next table. "And check these out. Remote access Kimoyo beads. They're updated to interface directly with my sand table," she said. "Ah. And what are these?" Chala asked, as he approached another table. "The real question is, what are those?" Shuri shouted, as she noticed that Chala was wearing sandals on his feet. Chala chuckled at this, along with Naruto. "Why do you have your toes out in my lab?" Shuri asked her brother. "What, you don't like my royal sandals?" Chala asked, as he placed one of his feet on a stool. "I wanted to go old school for my first day," he said with a grin, raising his eyebrows. "Yeah, and I bet the elders loved that," Shuri said. "I don't think your parents minded," Naruto said with a grin, shrugging his shoulders. Chala chuckled, as he put his foot back on the ground. "Here, try them on," Shuri said, putting what looked like the bottom of shoes on the ground. Chala took his sandals off and placed his feet on them, before his feet were covered in shoes. "They're fully automated. Just like that old American movie Baba likes to watch," Shuri said. "Oh, and I made them completely sound absorbent too." Chala stamped his feet down on the ground, but no sound happened as he did. "Interesting," Chala said. "Now that's a cool pair of shoes," Naruto said with an impressed look and tone. "Guess what I call them?" Shuri said with a grin. Naruto and Chala shrugged their shoulders at this. "Sneakers," Shuri said with a smug look. This caused Naruto to snort in laughter, while Chala looked clueless. "Because you never mind," Shuri said, as she smacked her brother on the chest, before walking off. "That was awesome, Shuri," Naruto said with a chuckle. "Yes, most impressive, sister. Now let's see what you have for us in terms of armor," Chala said, as he and Naruto looked around the lab. "I'm getting there," Shuri said, as she tapped her beads, which made two dummies rise out of the ground. One was wearing a new Black Panther outfit, while the other was wearing what looked like a much more high-tech version of an ANBU outfit, complete with an orange kitsune mask. Ooh, goody! Let the mortals of this world fear me, through you. Wahahaha! Kurama said with a mad cackle. Kurama approves, Naruto said with a chuckle, as he looked at his outfit. Shuri smiled at this, glad the inspiration for this outfit approved of it. It's complete with vibranium? Chala asked, looking at Naruto's new outfit curiously. Of course. Will and I insisted we want him coming back in one piece. Both outfits are both nanotech, so you both can easily change should the worst happen. The entire Black Panther suit sits within the teeth of the necklace, while Naruto's is inside a seal, which I will need you to help me set up, sweetie, Shuri said, as she approached Naruto. You just want to check out his chest, Chala said, as he rolled his eyes at this, as Naruto pulled his shirt up, so he could add a seal to his chest. How durable are the suits? Naruto asked Shuri curiously. It's vibranium, sweetie. I wouldn't send you out there with anything less, Shuri said, as she finished setting up Naruto's seal. But if it'll put your mind at ease, Chala said, as he kicked the mannequin with his suit on, sending it flying. Don't kick things around in my lab! Shuri yelled at Chala, as she picked the mannequin up and carried it back over. What? I was just showing Naruto. Hey, wait a minute, Chala said, as he and Naruto noticed the suit was glowing purple from where he kicked it. The nanites absorb the kinetic energy and hold it in place for redistribution, Shuri said. Very nice, Naruto and Chala said together, both impressed with this. Okay, brother, do me a favor and kick it again, in the same spot. I want to be sure, Shuri said, as she readied her beads to record. Chala looked at his sister with a raised eyebrow. You're recording? He asked her curiously. Yeah, for research purposes, Shuri said simply with a shrug. Naruto smirked at this, as he noticed Shuri's mischievous smirk. Chala shrugged at this as he kicked the mannequin again, only this time he was sent flying, when the suit released all the kinetic energy. Naruto and Shuri both laughed loudly at this. Oh, send me that video. I have to show it to Will, Naruto said with a grin. Chala groaned, as he laid on the ground. Delete that footage! He yelled at the couple. Oh, before I go, I wanted to ask you for a favor, Naruto said to Shuri, while Chala got up. What do you need, sweetie? Shuri asked, as she smiled at him. I want to have a hero suit made for a hero who helped me before I came here, and Naruto was saying, before he got cut off. Aw, that's Spider-Man, Shuri said, as she had heard Painey talking about him. Yeah. He's just a teen, and he has a rogue gallery already, Naruto said with a nod. And you want me to make him a suit that will not only give him defense, but help him look like a hero? Shuri asked with a knowing look. If that's okay, of course, Naruto said, as he knew this was asking a lot. Look, if you make it clear to him that this is not a toy, I have no problem with it, Shuri said. Indeed. If you're vouching for him, I agree, Chala said with a nod of agreement. The kid just wants to help people, from what I've seen. The fact that he does this, instead of making money when he really needs it, says it all, Naruto said. Shuri nodded at this. Okay, leave it to me. I'll have something ready within a few days, she said. The kid loves red and blue, Naruto said, before he kissed Shuri on the cheek, making her smile. By the way, is anyone else going with you? Shuri asked Chala. Yeah. Okoye and Nakia, Chala said with a nod. This made Shuri look at her brother in disbelief. Are you sure that it's a good idea to take your ex on a mission? She asked with a beeped eyebrow. Yes. And don't worry, we'll be fine, Chala said with a shrug. Ex? Is he still pining for her? Naruto asked with a grin. He froze when he saved her recently. Like an antelope caught in headlights, Okoye said while walking over, with a slight smile on her face. Naruto burst out laughing along with Shuri at this, while Chala groaned. Sometime later, in South Korea, Naruto and Chala walked into a casino, both wearing fancy suits. I hate this, Naruto said, as his hair was black and his whiskers were gone, thanks to a holographic disguise. Take your complaints to Ross, sweetie, Shuri said over his earpiece. Naruto sighed at this, as he walked over to a blackjack table, where he could keep an eye out for Claw. I hope that anything you win will be used for our date, sweetie, Shuri said with a giggle. Naruto chuckled at this, as he made a bet. And a few wins later, Naruto soon spotted a man with unkempt hair and beard. Naruto's mouth twitched as he looked at Clow. Is that him? He whispered, while he tried not to laugh. Yeah, why? Okoye asked curiously, while Chala, Shuri, and Nakia listened in. His name is Clow, and he has a metal arm, Naruto said, as his mouth twitched slightly. What, were you expecting him to have a claw or something? Shuri asked. No, dear. But please tell me he doesn't say I'll get you gadget, or I swear I'm gonna lose it, Naruto whispered, trying to stifle his laughter. This got silence from Shuri, Chala, and Nakia before. Pfft! Shuri sputtered out, as she stiffened her laughter. Okoye tried hard not to react to this, but she was slightly losing her composure. Focus, people, Chala said, as he slightly chuckled, as he made a note to tell this joke to his father. Yes, chef, Naruto said as he chuckled, resisting the urge to salute, since it would draw attention. Okoye covered her mouth at this, as she made a note to talk to Naruto about being professional later. Chala went to confront Clow, who was talking to an obvious buyer, but was stopped by someone before he could. Damn FBI agent, Shuri said, as she recognized this guy. I'll intercept, Naruto said, as he approached Clow and his buyer. Clow noticed Naruto and looked at him. Can I help you? He asked. Naruto held out a roll of money, which got Clow's attention before Naruto dropped it. Clow went to grab it, before Naruto grabbed him, and in a flash of yellow, Naruto and Clow were both gone. Jet outside the city. Naruto and Clow appeared in the Wakandan jet, and before Clow could react, Naruto's armor and mask appeared. Naruto then grabbed Clow by his metal arm, and slammed his face into the wall, and held him there. Who the hell are you? Clow groaned out, as he looked at Naruto as he held him against the wall and crushed his metal arm, before he could activate it. Where is the vibranium you stole? Talk before I break the other one, Naruto said with a deeper voice, as he grabbed his flesh arm. You work for them? I didn't think those cowards would recruit help to catch me, Clow said with a mocking grin. Naruto's response was to slug Clow in the kidney, making him groan in pain. You're the one desperate to flee from them. Now you can tell me, or you can tell it to them, Naruto said simply, as he pulled Clow to a cell on the jet. So, it's either talk, or be sentenced to death by those savages, Claw said with a laugh, as Naruto slammed his head into the cell door. Oops. Sorry, not sorry, Naruto said, before he opened the cell and pushed Clow into it. As Naruto locked the cell, Chala, Okoye and Nakia came into the Wakandan jet. Way to make us feel useless, love, Okoye said, as she approached Naruto. Hey, I got results. Though he isn't talking, Naruto said, as he let his mask recede, so Okoye could kiss his cheek. I'm sure we can get him to talk, Chala said, as he glared at Clow. You will get nothing from me. So you may as well kill me now, Clow said, as he smiled mockingly at them. I say have Cosmo rip it out of his mind when we get back, Naruto said, as he was getting annoyed with Claw's mouth. Good idea, it should be easy for him, Chala said, as he nodded in agreement. Okoye nodded at this, as she headed for the bee pit. So, what did that FBI guy want? Naruto asked Chala curiously, as they followed her. He was wanting to get the vibranium from Cloud, Chala said, as they all sat down and strapped themselves in. Okoye was sitting in the bee pit seat, and soon she had the jet in the air, before flying off. Back in Wakanda, Will, Cosmo and Penny were heading to the royal palace to visit Shuri. As they approached the palace, Will noticed what looked like a group of mercenaries wearing tribal masks guarding the palace doors. Will pulled Penny behind a wall, while Cosmo followed her. "What's wrong, Mom?" Penny asked curiously. Will peeked round the corner, and narrowed her eyes at the men. "I don't like the looks of those guys. Cosmo, can you read their minds from here?" she asked curiously. Cosmo nodded at this, as his eyes glowed for a moment, before he looked at Will. "They are mercenaries here to kill off the royal family, so their boss can take over the throne," he thought at Will and Penny. Will instantly switched to her guardian outfit, thanks to her magic. "Watch Penny, while I sneak inside and deal with this," she said, before she disappeared in a flash of electricity. Penny peeked around the corner at the mercenary guards, as she tapped a button on her kimono beads. As Cosmo pulled her behind the wall, some of the mercenaries spotted them, and they started to follow after them. As Penny and Cosmo ran, they were soon cut off by another platoon of mercenaries, who aimed their guns at them. "It's just a brat, and her dog," one of the mercenaries said, as some of them looked at them with disbelief. "Hey, isn't that the dog of that hero sage?" one of the mercenaries asked, as Cosmo growled at them as he blocked their path to Penny. "Then the brat must be that adopted kid," Sage and Guardian ran off with, another mercenary said. "I smell leverage." "All right, brat," a second mercenary was saying, before SP/DR dropped down next to Penny. "What the hell?" the mercenaries all yelled out, as Penny quickly jumped into the mech. "I got your brat, right here." "Hi-ya!" Penny yelled, as her mech took a kung fu stance and attacked the mercenaries. Some of the mercenaries fired their guns at the mech, but the bullets easily reflected. She then webbed up their guns and pulled them out of their hands, before Cosmo sent them all flying thanks to his psychic powers. "I hope that Spider-Man kid doesn't see you," Cosmo said with a chuckle, as Penny webbed up the knocked-out mercs. "Hey, he's called Spider-Man, while I'm called SP/Dr. Plus, there's Spider-Gwen too," Penny said, as she poked her head out of the mech. "And the fact you can only swing and crawl around, when you could easily fly?" Cosmo asked with a raised eyebrow. "No treat for you," Penny said, as she went back into her mech, and it made an X face on the screen. Cosmo whimpered at this, and gave Penny a begging face. "Oh, fine. Let's go get you a treat, after we go help Mom," Penny said, as she swung off towards the palace. "Right behind you," Cosmo said, as he followed her. In the royal chambers, King Chaka and Queen Ramonda were on their thrones, while Shuri was blocking the path to them from an American man. His hair was in dreadlocks, and he wore a military outfit with many weapons attached to him. He was holding a machine gun in his hands, as he walked about. "Who are you?" Chaka asked, as he looked at the young man. The man chuckled at this. "Really? You don't recognize your own nephew? I mean, you left my father dead in our home. What, did you expect me to die and not be your problem?" he asked sarcastically. Chaka's eyes widened at this. "You are Njoba's child," he said. This caused Shuri and Ramonda to gasp at this. The man pulled down his bottom lip, showing what looked like glowing Wakandan letters. "The name's Njidaka, given to me by my father. But I also go by Eric, or Killmonger to my enemies," he said, letting go of his lip. "My boy," Chaka said before he was cut off. "I'm not your boy, old man. You left me an orphan, and I'm gonna finish what my father started. I challenge you for the throne, Killmonger said with a glare. He's not the king anymore, Shuri said, as she readied her arm blasters. Oh good. So I can kill him without issue, Eric said, as he aimed his gun at Chaka. Before Will appeared behind him in midair, with her leg raised mid-kick. She then slammed it into his shoulder, sending him flying into the wall. Are you all okay? Will asked, as she blocked Eric's path, along with Shuri. Chaka and Ramonda both nodded at this, smiling gratefully at her. How did you get past my men? Eric asked, as he slowly got on his feet, and ripped off his destroyed body armor, which was cracked thanks to Will's kick. Those morons were looking for the royal guards, and didn't think to look in the air, as I snuck around and made my way to the throne room, Will said with a shrug. Eric smirked at this, before he pressed a button on his ear. Plan B is a go, he said. But all he heard was static. Suddenly, they heard an explosion outside the throne room, and what sounded like men screaming. And then the front doors exploded, as what looked like SP/DR, who had a mercenary pinned to the door under its legs, flew into the room, and landed on the ground. /ha. Who's the brat now? Penny's voice yelled from inside SP/DR, while the face on the robot made a LOL emoji. That's what you have been building? Chaka asked in surprise, as he knew Penny was gifted, but this was something else entirely. /you bet. Me and Cosmo beat most of the mercenaries easily, Penny's voice said, before Penny poked her head out of the mech, while Cosmo ran in. That's my girl, Will said, as she smiled at the mech. My men were beaten by a brat and her dog. Eric yelled out, as he pulled a pistol off his leg, but froze as Cosmo grabbed him with his psychic powers, and held him in place. Stay, Cosmo said with a smug tone, as if talking to a pet. Eric growled at this, as he tried to move, but he couldn't move an inch. Suddenly, the Dora Milaje marched in, and pointed their spears at Eric. Sorry we're late, your majesties. They had us locked up, one of the Dora Milaje said. You're quite welcome, Penny said as she smiled, while some of the soldiers nodded in thanks. You're a hacker too? Ramonda asked curiously. Of course she is. She's my little genius, Will said as she smiled at Penny. Lock him up. Chala will deal with him later, Chaka said to his guards. The guards nodded, as Cosmo dropped Eric, who fell to the ground. As the guards approached Eric, he pulled out a knife and went to stab Shuri, but... Squelch! He was stopped by Will, who was in front of him, and her arm was through his heart, while her hand was covered in lightning. Eric coughed up some blood and glared at Will, who had a cold look on her face. You attacked my friends, you're dead, Will growled out, as she pulled her hand out of his chest, and let Eric fall to the floor dead. Cosmo thankfully blocked Penny's view of this, and she knew she probably shouldn't see this, so she didn't argue. Will turned to Chaka and bowed. Sorry, but that guy was looking to kill, even if it meant dying, she said. Chaka looked at Eric's body and sighed. No, this is my failure, he said, shaking his head slightly, as the royal guards carried Eric's body away. Will nodded at this, before she turned to Penny and Cosmo. Come on, let's go home, she said to her daughter and dog. Penny nodded at this, as her and Cosmo followed her out of the throne room. Later, Chala stood in the throne room with his father, who had just finished explaining to his son who Eric was and what he had done. Chala held his forehead, as he thought about what he was told. I will leave you to your thoughts, my son, Chaka said, as he left his son, now the king, alone on his throne. After a few moments, Chala looked up and saw Naruto was in the corner of the room, with a frown on his face. Do you have any thoughts? Chala asked, knowing when Naruto had this look on his face, he was in deep thought. I think Eric was right to be mad, and to want to help people with Wakanda's technology. But his plan was not how it should be done, Naruto said firmly. Chala looked down at the ground at this, and said nothing as he had heard this from others like Nakia. Look, I'm not saying that you have to give the world everything. I'm saying help them with tech that is humane. Do like Tony, and have a strict no weapons rule, Naruto said, as he knew weapons from Wakanda was an absolute no-go for sharing with the world. Chala said nothing at this, before he slowly nodded. I agree. It's time to stop hiding, he said, as he straightened up. Naruto smiled at this and nodded in agreement. I hope this doesn't mean me, Will and Penny have to leave, he said. Chala shook his head at this, as he smiled. Of course not. Shuri would skin me alive, he said, as he chuckled. You bet I would, Shuri said, as she barged into the room, making her presence known. Relax, sister, I would be hard-pressed to take away your boyfriend, your best friend and your favorite niece, Chala said, referring to Naruto, Will and Penny. Good. Now, as for you, we have a date. So let's go, Shuri said, as she grabbed Naruto's hand and dragged him out of the room. Yes, dear, Naruto said with a feeble tone, which caused Chala to laugh and Shuri to slap him on the shoulder, not amused with his joke. In the Wakandan streets, Shuri had dragged Naruto out of the palace, with many people watching in bemusement, and now they were walking through the streets, with Okoye following along behind them. So, what's the plan, Shuri? Naruto asked her with a smile. You're going to take me out to lunch, then on a shopping spree, Shuri said. Don't you have a wardrobe or something, Your Highness? Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow. So I want to spend time with you. Is that so wrong? Shuri asked him, as she gave a cute pout at Naruto. Of course not. Let's get something to eat, Naruto said with a sigh. Good. Also, we can discuss that suit you want me to make for that kid that helped you out with Ross' gang of morons, Shuri said with a grin. I was gonna ask Gwen if she had ideas for any gadgets that may help him, Naruto said with a shrug. Oh yeah, she would be the one to ask. I'll have her meet us at my lab later. I also have a suit for her anyway, Shuri said, as she nodded. Hiya, Harem's sister. Can I have a new suit? Deathpool yelled out, as she stepped out of a portal, before she hugged Shuri. Release the princess immediately, Okoye growled out, as she pointed her spear at Deathpool. Relax, she's harmless. She's more of a stalker than anything, Naruto said, as he looked at Okoye, who looked at him and nodded before she lowered her spear. I am not. Author-san said that I'm cute and cuddly. Or was that Stitch? Deathpool said with a huff, as she tilted her head. Why are you here? Naruto asked with a sigh, as he pinched his nose. I missed you. Plus, I wanted to talk about that continuity error with Juggernaut, Deathpool was saying, before Naruto held up his hand, cutting her off. I'm not in the mood for a migraine, Naruto said, as he could not understand when Deathpool went on one of her tirades. Me, I love this chick. She's hilarious, Kurama said with a laugh. Shut up, you, Naruto thought to Kurama with a scowl. Tell the furball I love him too, Deathpool said with a thumbs up. Kurama laughed at this as he rolled around on his back, as Naruto sighed while shaking his head at this. We were gonna go eat, and then I was gonna work on a suit for a friend of his, Shuri said, as she looked at Deathpool with a bewildered look. Oh, I wanna come too. Please let me come. Please, 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 Deathpool was saying with her hands pressed together. And I thought that Will was exhausted, Okoye said with a sigh. Oh yeah, I haven't met her yet. She needs a bestie, right? Deathpool asked, before she raised her scythe and slashed a portal open. Here I come, bestie. Try and be at least PG. Penny is with her, Naruto said flatly. Oh, I'm an auntie. Has she built SP/DR yet? Deathpool asked curiously. How does she know about that? Shuri asked Naruto in surprise, as security was top rate, and nobody should have known about that but her and Painy. I read the script. Okay, I'll see you later, Whiskers. I'm gonna go spoil my niece, Deathpool said with a cackle. She likes video games, Naruto said with a chuckle. Perfect. Deathpool yelled happily, before she jumped through her portal, which closed behind her. Naruto chuckled as he shook his head at this. So what's her story, sweetie? Shuri asked curiously, while Okoye looked at Naruto curiously, as she also was curious. Would you believe Deadpool's future daughter with death? Naruto said with a small chuckle. No, seriously, who is she? Okoye asked, not believing Naruto. Sorry, but it's true. And apparently she likes me. So yeah, sorry, Naruto said with a chuckle, at the looks on the two women's faces. The two women shook their heads at this, before getting something to eat, then went shopping. Later in Shuri's lab. Naruto and Shuri were in her lab after they got something to eat, while Okoye had gone to go do her training with her soldiers. Right now, they were working with Gwen, who they were talking with over Skype, since she was not being hunted down, thanks to her identity not being known. So, what are you thinking of having the suit look like? Gwen asked curiously. Well, Peter likes red and blue. But what we really want to know is if you have any ideas for gadgets that could help, Naruto said, with Shuri nodding in agreement. Honestly? I am not really a gadget girl in my world. My Peter was the scientist, Gwen said, as she shook her head at this. Well, that hasn't changed. Our Peter is apparently top of his class, Naruto said with a grin, as Shuri made an image of Peter at a science fair from months ago appear for Gwen to see. Gwen smiled at this, but paused as she spotted something in the picture. Shuri, can you zoom in on the left side of Peter, please? She asked. Shuri looked at the picture and raised an eyebrow. On the leather jacket, teen girl? Sure, hold on. There, it's all cleared, she was saying, before her eyes widened in surprise. Naruto looked and his eyes also widened, as the image showed what looked like a teen Gwen, only this one had long blonde hair and was dressed in a leather jacket and jacket. Looks like my alternate moved into the city, Gwen said with a sigh at the image of her younger self. Well, here's hoping that you two don't run into each other, Naruto said jokingly, trying to lighten the mood. No problem. If we do, I changed my last name anyway. Plus, I never was into leather anyway, Gwen said with her own chuckle. Shuri also chuckled at this, as she typed at her computer, before she laughed a little. It seems that your younger self seems to be a problem child, she said. Oh geez. How bad? Gwen asked curiously, knowing this Gwen may not be the same as her exactly. She's been expelled from several schools, and just recently got a warning for pulling a knife on a bully picking on our favorite web slinger. Besides you, Shuri said with a chuckle, at Gwen and Naruto's faces at this revelation. Wow, Teen You is a thug, Naruto said, as he looked at the Teen Gwen's file. Who was the bully? Gwen asked curiously. It says it was Flash Thompson, Shuri said, reading the file. Ha! Even in this dimension, that guy's an ass, Gwen said with a chuckle. Anyway, getting back on topic. You think we should ask Peter for ideas for gadgets? Naruto asked. I say give him the resources within reason to make his own. Just make him a basic suit that is easily upgradable, Gwen said with a shrug. That's easily done. I'm guessing it should have good defense, but flexibility like the new suit I made for you? Shuri asked, knowing that since Peter had Gwen's powers, she would know best. Gwen nodded at this. Good. It will be done soon, and Naruto will meet up with you later to go take it to him, Shuri said with a smile. Gwen paused at this. Are you sure that's a good idea? She asked nervously. Gwen, he's gonna ask who you are. And I think it's best if you explain it, Naruto said kindly, but firmly. Gwen said nothing at this, but sighed as she nodded in agreement, knowing that if Peter was gonna do this, he should know what may come his way. And maybe after that, me and you could go on a date, before I have to get back, Naruto said with a smile. Gwen chuckled at this and nodded. Fine. I can fit you into my schedule, she said with a coy smile. Naruto nodded at this, before Gwen hung up. Well, at least she's being more open, now that she's used to you, Shuri said with a smile, as she was glad Gwen was more used to them, since she knew Gwen had it rough back in her home dimension, before it collapsed. Naruto nodded at this, before he looked at the schematic for Peter's suit that Shuri was working on. Later, Naruto was in his house that he, Will and Penny shared on the outskirts of town, packing up his backpack. What are you up to, mister? Will asked, as she walked into the room with Penny and Cosmo close behind. I'm heading to New York to drop off Peter's new suit, Naruto said, as he sealed the backpack into his wrist seal on his arm. So Shuri finished that. Cool, then let's go, Will said as she smiled. What about Penny? I mean, I trust Cosmo, but he's not the best babysitter, Naruto said, before looking at said dog. No offensive, buddy. Cosmo shook his head at this, to show that he wasn't bothered. Do not worry. I'm not offended, he said, as he laid down on his bed. I'll get Shuri to watch her. They can have fun while we're gone, Will said with a grin. Okay, fine. But we're gonna hang out with Gwen too, so behave, Naruto said to Will. Oh, does this mean that there'll be a threesome? Kurama asked with a cackle. Oh, go chew on your ass, Fuzzy, Naruto thought to him with a scowl. Why, you rude mother dash, Kurama was yelling, before Naruto cut him off mentally. Okay, let's go. And yes, I have my hollow watch. Right, Stan? Will asked with a smirk, as she held up her wrist. \Excelsior, the watch yelled out. So that's where he went, Naruto said with a chuckle. I am also connected to Miss Penny's lab in your old home, which I'm proud to say I have been able to keep Mr. Ross and Stark out of. Though Stark hasn't been trying that hard, if I'm being honest, Stan said. Why? Does he think that I booby-trapped it with pranks or something? Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow. More like he's feeling guilty for the whole Civil War crap, Will was saying, before Naruto poked her in the forehead. No, bad girl. No teaching our little girl bad words, Naruto said, as he scolded Will, like a parent would a child. Right. Your Uncle Stark made me say that, you hear? Will said to Penny. Yes, Ka-san, Penny said, as she smiled and gave them a thumbs up. Where's my favorite niece? Shuri's voice yelled from the other room. Shuri, right now, she's your only niece, Naruto said with a chuckle. And that's why she's my favorite, Shuri said happily, as she walked into the room. Okay, you be good, okay little spider, Naruto said, as he patted Penny on the head. SP/DR, Penny said, as she fixed her hair. That's what I said, isn't it? Naruto asked with a coy smile. Penny pouted cutely at this. Naruto and Will both chuckled at this, before they activated their hollow disguises, with Naruto's being the one from his mission with Chala, and Will's was pretty much her with black hair and purple eyes, before the couple both disappeared in a flash of yellow. In the city, Naruto and Will appeared on a city rooftop. I've missed the city, Will said, as she smiled down at the city. I bet the criminals didn't, Naruto said with a chuckle. They then heard someone yelling nearby in a nearby alleyway, causing them both to sigh. Not even back in the city for a few seconds, and we already have to go fight crime, Naruto said, shaking his head at this. Come on, let's go remind them who we are, Will said with a grin. Naruto and Will then ran over to the edge of the building, and looked down into the alleyway, and spotted a woman down there, and what looked like a thug webbed to a wall. "Heh, it looks like our spider has been busy," Naruto said as he chuckled. "Any idea where he went?" Will asked Naruto, as she looked around, trying to spot him. Naruto reached out with his sage mode, then smiled as he looked to the side and saw what looked like a man in a really badly made hero suit, sitting on a nearby rooftop with a pizza in his hand, and an open pizza box next to him. Naruto and Will ran over and jumped over to the rooftop. "Hey Pete," Naruto yelled, getting his attention. Who are you? And how do you know my name?" I'm not Pete," Peter said in a panic. "Kid, it's us," Will said, as her and Naruto's hollow disguises switched to them in their hero outfits. "Oh, heh. Sorry, Miss Guardian," Peter said, as he sighed in relief. "Call me Will," Kid Will said with a chuckle. "Right. So, what brings you two here?" Peter asked curiously. Naruto smiled, as he pulled up his sleeve and unsealed the backpack from his wrist seal tattoo. "We wanted to thank you for the help from back when Ross' team of morons attacked me," he said, as he handed Peter the backpack. "Yeah, and this suit is much better than the crappy one you're wearing," Will said with a grin. "Well, at least he ain't walking around with a paper bag on his head, with 2 eye holes to see out of," Kurama said with a snicker. Naruto bit back a snort at this. "You made me a suit?" Peter asked in surprise, as he looked inside the bag. "Well, we asked our friend Shuri to do it," Naruto was saying, before he was cut off. "Wait, you mean Shuri, as in the Princess of Wakanda?" Peter asked, with awe in his voice. "Yup. She threw in the tools to make your own upgrades for the suit. And yes, it has tech from Wakanda in there too. So, in the princess' words, don't be a moron with it," Naruto said with a firm, but friendly tone. "Noted. Okay, let's see this," Peter said, as he reached into the backpack and pulled out what looked like a red wristwatch. "What the? Where's the suit?" he asked in surprise. "Put on the watch, and tap the faceplate twice," Naruto said with a smile. "Did Shuri get the idea from watching Ben 10? Since he does something similar to transform into his aliens," Will asked with a beeped eyebrow. "I can neither confirm nor deny that. Shuri watches cartoons with Painy," Naruto said with a smile, as Peter put on the wristwatch and tapped it twice. The watch then scanned him for a moment, and soon what looked like red and blue nanobots came out of the watch and covered Peter. When the nanobots were done, Peter was wearing his new suit. It was red and blue, with a white spider emblem on the chest. "Whoa," Peter said, as he looked at himself in his new suit. "It has an AI in it to help you, along with a training program with the different functions of your suit," Naruto explained. "This feels great. Now I feel like a hero. Wait until Gwen and MJ see this," Peter said with an excited tone, as he looked himself over. "Now, do you have any questions?" Naruto asked Peter, as he knew the young teen may have questions. Yeah. I have been seeing reports in the news about this ghost spider chick. Are you familiar with her?" Peter asked curiously. Naruto and Will paused at this, and looked at each other nervously. "Look, kid, it's kinda complicated," Will said, as she sighed. "Isn't it always?" Peter asked with a slight smile. Naruto chuckled at this. "Okay, kid, are you familiar with the multiverse?" he asked, deciding to get to the point. "You mean where you take a different path and cause something else to happen in another universe?" Peter asked with a raised eyebrow. Naruto nodded at this. "Pretty much. See, this ghost spider is an alternate version of Spider-Man," he said. "Ah, okay, I understand. So it's not a fangirl. Thank God," Peter said with a shudder. "Ha! I like this kid. He's got his priorities straight," Will said, as she burst out laughing, while Naruto chuckled and shook his head. "So, is it a female version of me?" Oh wait, let me guess. Her name is May, right? Peter asked with a chuckle. Not exactly, kid, a female voice said from behind Peter. Gah! Well, at least you didn't set off my tingly thing, Peter said, as he turned around. Spider sense, actually, Gwen said as she chuckled at this. Huh, that's a good name. Mind if I steal that? Peter asked curiously. It's fine, kid. But look, I'm not related to you. But I did know a version of you, before my dimension collapsed, Gwen said as she sighed, and knew she would have to say it eventually. Oh? Are you someone I know? Peter asked curiously. In a manner of speaking, Gwen said, as she removed her mask. Whoa, it's an older Gwen. Though the pink dye job is different, Peter said, as he jumped back in surprise, before he looked at Gwen in shock. Yeah, I'm not exactly like your Gwen. I've never pulled a knife on a bully, Gwen said with a chuckle. Ah geez, of course you've heard of that, Peter said, as he held his head. So anyway, kid, just know I have your back if you need it. After all, fellow spiders stick together, Gwen said, as she held out her fist to Peter. Cool. Me having help is appreciated, especially with Fat Boy and his secret kingpin crap, Peter said with a sigh, as he fist bumped with Gwen. Geez, kid. Less than a year, and you already have some supervillains, and now a mob boss after you. Do you try to piss off the bad guys? Will asked. It just means that I'm doing my job, right? Peter asked sheepishly. This got laughs from the older heroes, who nodded in agreement at this, before they heard sirens of some police cars that were driving by. What's going on? Peter asked curiously, as they all looked and Gwen put on her mask. I believe there is an alert for Rhino running through Oscorp, while there is a middle school field trip the AI in Peter's suit said with a female voice. Oh, thanks, so what do I call you? Peter asked curiously. I believe Shuri preferred calling me Madam Web. She found it amusing the AI said with humor in its tone. Let's discuss this later. Are you ready to show off your new look, kid? Naruto asked with a smile. You bet. Follow me, Web Warriors! Peter yelled out, as he jumped off the rooftop and swung away, with Gwen not far behind him. Not calling ourselves that, Will said, as she and Naruto flew after Peter and Gwen. Oscorp. Inside the Oscorp building, a group of middle school kids were being led towards the exit by a black male kid and a Pakistani female about their age. Come on, Kamala, move! The boy yelled at the girl. I'm coming, Miles, the girl yelled back, as they both ran past a display of spiders and what looked like a blue crystal. As they ran, the building shook, causing Miles and Kamala to bump into the displays, and the containers to break. The crystal shattered in front of Kamala, and what looked like mist flew out, and Kamala breathed it in. Kamala, move! Miles yelled, as he covered his mouth and pulled her along, not noticing a spider on his shoulder. They both ran after their class, and when they ran out of the building, the wall nearby broke and the Rhino ran out, making them scream as they hid behind a cop car. Freeze, don't move! A cop yelled out, as all the cops pointed their guns at him. The Rhino laughed mockingly at this, and charged at them, with Kamala and Miles in his path. But before he could clash with them, Will appeared in front of the Rhino and slammed her fist into his horn hard, sending him flying down the road. Wow, Miles said with wide eyes at this. So cool. It's Guardian, Kamala said, as she smiled and started to geek out. Hey kids. I'll sign something later. You better get moving, Will said with a smile at the two kids. They both nodded at this, and ran for cover. Spider-Man and Ghost Spider landed on either side of Rhino. Rhino, what are you doing out of the zoo at this time of day? Spider-Man asked, with a tilt of his head. Yeah, picking on kids is gonna get you a timeout, Ghost Spider said, as she wagged her finger at him. Gah, you spiders are multiplying now? Rhino asked with a growl of annoyance. You don't want to fight them, then fight me, asshole, Will yelled, as she charged more electricity in her body, ready to attack again. Ha, little fairy got lucky, Rhino was saying, before Will nailed him in the gut with another lightning-charged punch, making him hunch over. I got your fairy, right here, Will yelled, as she grabbed his arm and with a roar, she threw him down the road into a truck and flew after him. And with that, the fight will be over in 3 minutes tops, Naruto said with a sigh, as he flew down and landed next to Spider-Man and Ghost Spider. Her fists are actually affecting him. Must be cause her lighting does piercing damage, Peter mused, as he rubbed his chin. Nerd Gwen said, as she shook her head at this. You all alright? Naruto asked the lead officer, who had a badge with the name Morales on it, while Will had Rhino in a chokehold, as she slugged him in the gut. Yeah, we're fine. Is he gonna be okay? The officer asked, pointing out Will and Rhino. Say uncle. Say it, you Rhino, reject, Will yelled at Rhino, as she slammed her knee into his gut. Uncle! Uncle! Rhino yelled out. Good Rhino. Now do me a favor, and sleep, Will yelled before she slugged him in the face, sending him into the pavement, knocked out. Meh, he'll be fine, Naruto said, as he waved his hand dismissively. She's cool. She doesn't take his lip, Kamala said with a bright grin, as Will floated over. Oh, aren't you sweet? Will said with a smile, as she patted Kamala on the head. I saw you helping your friend during this, not bad kid, Peter said, as he nodded at Miles. Miles rubbed the back of his head at this, and sheepishly chuckled. Heh, thanks OW. He was saying, before he grabbed his hand and looked at it, and saw he had been bitten by a spider. Can me and Miles get a picture? Kamala asked Will, excitement in her voice. Normally I wouldn't approve, since you two are wanted. But you saved my son, so I'll allow it. As long as you both make yourselves scarce afterwards, the officer said with a chuckle at this, as he took Kamala's phone to take the picture. Naruto, Will, Peter and Gwen stood next to Miles and Kamala, and smiled as Miles' dad took the picture. Stay out of trouble, you two, Will said, as she smiled at Miles and Kamala. No promises. Kamala here is always into mischief, Miles said with a smile, before Kamala punched him in the shoulder. Naruto and the others laughed at this, before they all took off, leaving the area. While Kamala said, as she watched them leave, Okay, you two, I'll take you both home, Miles' father said to the two preteens. Miles and Kamala both followed the cop and got into his police car. Later with Kamala. Kamala was in her room, looking at her laptop, looking at the footage of Will beating up Rhino and smiling, before she moved and knocked over a bottle and quickly reached to grab it. But her arm stretched slightly, while hands suddenly grew bigger, surprising her. What the? Kamala asked in surprise. With Miles? Miles was in his room groaning, as he got up out of bed and walked towards his bathroom. Miles splashed some water onto his face, and looked into the mirror. What? He yelled, seeing he was now ripped and slightly taller. As he panicked, his eyes surged with yellow energy and suddenly, he disappeared, becoming invisible. With Naruto. It had been a few months since the incident with Killmonger, along with giving Peter his new suit, and Naruto was in the city in his hero outfit, just looking around the city from a rooftop. Before Naruto could move to another rooftop, he saw what looked like a round ship flying over the city. Why is there a donut ship over New York? Naruto thought to himself, before he jumped towards it. He then saw what looked like a confrontation going on down below the spaceship. He saw what looked like two aliens talking to Tony, Bruce, and two people he had never seen before. One was in a blue suit with a red cape, while the other was wearing a brown outfit. People of Earth, rejoice. You are about to be defeated by the children of Thanos, the short alien said. Naruto's eyes widened slightly at this. Funk, he thought, remembering his only encounter with Thanos. Indeed, Kurama said with a nod, as he recalled how cold but calculating Thanos was. I'm sorry, but Earth is closed today. So take your buddy, get in your space donut, and get lost, Tony said. Naruto then jumped down, landing next to Tony, surprising him. What, he said. Otherwise I'll send you back to Daddy in pieces, Naruto said, as he went into sage mode, causing the two men with Tony to look over in interest. I thought you burned bridges with Sage Stark, the man with the cloak said. That was Ross, not me, Tony said as he nodded at Naruto, who nodded back. Nice to see you, Bruce. So, who's the two newbies? Naruto asked Tony, gesturing to the two new people. Oh right. Sage, Strange and Wong here are magic users, like Tink, Tony said. Stonekeeper, do these two speak for you? The short alien said. Nope, I can speak for myself, Strange said, as he gestured with his hands and caused magic circles to appear over his hands. But you're trespassing on this planet, and endangering the people here. Wong then did the same thing, as he got in a fighting stance. He means get lost, Squidward, Tony said with a firm tone, causing Naruto to snort at this. My name is Ebony Maw, and I tire of your mouth. Black Dwarf, attack them and bring me the stone, the alien said to his companion. The larger alien grunted at this, as he walked forward while dropping his large weapon on the ground. You feeling up to go green, Bruce? Naruto asked, knowing it would be best to have some muscle to deal with the big guy. Nope, not really, but when have I ever? Bruce replied with a small shrug. Good, 'cause I kinda miss seeing the big guy, Naruto said with a smile. Bruce chuckled at this, before he tried to force himself to turn, but all he did was turn green slightly, before he went back to normal. Strange and Wong looked at Tony and Naruto at this, wondering what was happening. Dude, you're embarrassing me in front of the wizards, Tony said to Bruce, as Black Dwarf got closer. I don't understand what's going on, Bruce said, as he looked at his hands. Okay, you're benched for now. Stick near me, Naruto said firmly, as he pulled Bruce over to him. Tony nodded at this, and took off his sunglasses and tapped his chest as he walked forward, which caused the chest plate he was wearing to release some nanobots, which formed into his Iron Man suit. Nanotechnology? Hell, Will said you would do this, after Chalice showed his suit off, Naruto said with a chuckle. I had this in the works for years, Whiskers. So don't test me, Tony said with a chuckle, before he fired a massive beam at Black Dwarf, who charged at them, but was sent flying by the beam back to Ebony Maw, who just gestured with his hand, sending Black Dwarf to the side. Funking telekinesis, Naruto growled, as Black Dwarf charged at him after getting up. Mr. Banner, since your green friend won't be joining us, Strange said, as he waved his hand and made a portal under Bruce, causing him and part of a taxi to fall through it, before it closed. Naruto clashed with Black Dwarf, and started to fight him, making clones to attack him, as part of a team. Naruto dodged out of the way of his hook weapon, and as he took another swing at him, Naruto smirked before he was caught in the hook weapon. Black Dwarf grinned in victory at this, before he saw Naruto's head was smoking, making him tilt his head to the side. Hope this hook wasn't expensive, Naruto said with a smirk, before he exploded violently, sending Black Dwarf flying back into a nearby truck. Tony then attacked Black Dwarf, who roared and tackled him into a park nearby. Naruto sighed at this, deciding to leave Wong and Strange to deal with Maw. As he ran into the park, he saw Bruce nearby under a tree branch. Come on, Hulk, what are you doing? Come out! Come out! Bruce yelled, as he slapped himself several times, before half of his face turned green. No! Hulk yelled out, before Bruce shrunk back to normal. No? What do you mean no? Bruce asked in confusion. What the hell happened to the big guy, to make him such a punk ass? Naruto asked, as he ran over to Bruce, while making some clones to send to help Tony, and the just-arrived Spider-Man with Black Dwarf. He was fine hours ago, until Bruce was saying, before he thought to himself. What? Naruto asked, hoping it wasn't anything really bad. He got in a fight with Thanos and well, he kinda beat the hell out of him, before I was sent to Earth by Heimdall, Bruce said. He lost? Naruto asked curiously, not that surprised, since there was always someone stronger. Ha! He got his ass kicked, and now he's being a punk ass. Gahahahaha. Kurama cackled, as he rolled on his back in Naruto's mindscape, kicking his back legs in the air while holding his sides. Naruto sighed at this, as he hated to admit it, but Kurama was right. He then looked at Bruce and held up his hand. Here, let me talk to him, he said before he placed his hand on Bruce's forehead. Bruce's mindscape. Naruto was in an empty white space, and as he looked around, he saw the Hulk sitting at a campfire. Naruto walked over to Hulk, and sat down next to him. So I heard you took a brutal beating, Naruto said simply. Hulk no wanna talk about it, Hulk said, not looking at Naruto. So, you're just gonna let your friends die then? Naruto asked with a glare. Hulk said nothing to this, but looked away. Boo-hoo, you lost one fight and that's it? Naruto asked as he got up. Hulk growled at this, but said nothing. So you lost, big deal? Man up and fight back. You are the Hulk, and the Hulk doesn't just roll over after one fight goes wrong. Naruto yelled at the Hulk. Hulk said nothing to this, as he glared at the ground. Oh, you're just gonna say nothing and be a coward? Naruto asked with a sneer. This made Hulk look up at Naruto. Hulk is not a coward! Hulk yelled in Naruto's face. Naruto said nothing to this and didn't react, as he glared at the Hulk. Words are cheap, show me, he said firmly. Hulk glared at Naruto, who just glared back. Outside Bruce's mindscape. Naruto smirked, and stepped back from Bruce. Well, what did whoa? Bruce was asking, before he felt a surge and he transformed into the Hulk and roared loudly, destroying his shirt. Good to see you're back. Now, Wong over there needs help with Thanos' son, Naruto said, as he pointed out Black Dwarf fighting against Wong. Hulk glared at Black Dwarf and roared again, as he charged at the child of Thanos, and tackled him through a tree. So, did you and Strange deal with the bald one? Naruto asked Wong, as he walked over to him. No, Strange was captured. Stark and Spider-Man went after him, Wong said, as he pointed out the ship, which was flying up into the atmosphere. Shit! Naruto yelled, as he took off flying in his sage mode after the ship. So, I take it they care more about what the wizard has than taking the big brute with them, Kurama said simply. I felt something coming from his necklace. I have a bad feeling, Naruto thought to himself. Soon Naruto was getting close to the ship, and saw Tony making a hole in the ship, and with a burst of speed, followed him inside. Wow, I'm surprised you could make it up here, Whiskers, Tony said, jumping in surprise at seeing Naruto. Many talents I have, Naruto said, doing a Yoda imitation. Tony groaned at this, as he shook his head at this. Before we go save the magic guy, give me a minute, Naruto said, as he took out his Kimoyo beads, which activated and Will's face appeared. What is it? I'm having a situation here, damn it! Will yelled, looking like she was in the middle of a fight. Will, what's wrong? Naruto asked with a frown. Stan told me some space asshole was taking the Mind Stone from Ross, so me, Gwen, Shuri and Nebula booked it there to save it, but those assholes took Nebula. Will yelled angrily. Naruto scowled at this, glad that Will had saved the Mind Stone. But Nebula was taken, which he really didn't like. Tink, you need to keep that stone under lockdown, Tony yelled at Will. You're with Tony? He was seen going into space after those aliens. What the funk, Naruto? Will yelled in a panic at this. Will, I'm sorry, but Tony needs the backup. So please, just get the Mind Stone back to Wakanda, and call whomever you have to for help, Naruto said firmly. Will frowned at this, before she glared at Tony. He better come back alive, Tony, or I'm gonna send you back to Pepper missing a limb, she growled at him. Tony held up his hands at this. There won't even be a scratch on him, he said to her. You better hope so, Stark, Will said with a glare. Love you, Will, Naruto said with a grin at this. Love you too, Will said before she hung up. You better call Pepper, and let her know what's going on, Naruto said to Tony. I already did. Now, where do we start looking for the good doctor? Tony asked, knowing Naruto could sense where he was. Naruto nodded at this, as he focused and paused as he looked up. Oh, god damn it, Peter! He yelled, as he spotted Peter now in a red and gold uniform, who dropped down to them. Kid, I told you to go home, Tony said, with a really annoyed tone at the young hero. No way. This is obviously a world-ending problem, and I can't be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man if the world ends, Peter said firmly. He's got us there, Tony, Naruto said with a sigh, as he could see Peter being useful, since they were low on help here. Tony sighed at this. Fine, but you follow our lead, and you follow orders, he said firmly to Peter, who nodded at this, as he followed the two older heroes. Later. Naruto, Tony and Peter glanced down, and saw Strange held in the air with Maw before him, and what looked like giant needles hovering around him. As they did, Naruto felt a tap on his shoulder, causing him to pull out a kunai and turn to see Strange's cloak hovering before them. Okay, that's new, Naruto said, as he put away his kunai. What is it? Peter whispered as he poked at the cloak, before it slapped his hand away. Magic cloak is loyal, who knew, Tony said with a shrug, as he looked at Maw. Okay, what's the plan? He asked Naruto. Naruto looked at Maw and thought to himself. Oh, I have one. Did either of you see that really old movie Aliens? Peter asked. You want to blow a hole in the ship and jettison him out? Naruto asked with a raised eyebrow. Mr. Stark blows a hole. I'll grab the magic guy along with the cloak and Naruto can distract him, giving Mr. Stark the opening, Peter said. What's your IQ, Peter? Naruto asked him, slightly impressed with this quickly thought of plan. Okay, we will follow your lead, Whiskers, Tony said with a nod. Naruto nodded before he silently jumped down to confront Maw. Maw paused his questioning of Strange, and turned to look at Naruto. I can kill him easily, before you can make any pitiful attempt to stop me, he said as he looked at Naruto. Naruto glared at this, as he knew that was a possibility, before he threw a tri-pronged kunai at Maw, which he just caught with his telekinesis and scoffed, as the kunai floated next to his head. Pitiful, he said. Wait for it, Naruto said with a hard tone, before in a flash of yellow, Naruto was next to Maw and he rammed a kunai into Maw's throat. The blades above Strange instantly fell off of him, as Naruto held Maw down as he started to bleed out, as Naruto pulled his kunai out of his throat. Maw glared up at Naruto with pure hate, before he fell to the ground, dead. This caused Strange to fall to the ground, but his cloak appeared on his back before he hit the floor. You okay? Naruto asked Strange as he got up. Strange nodded at this, as he looked at Maw and then Naruto. Your reputation for being tricky is well earned, Mr. Uzumaki, he said, nodding his head in thanks to Naruto. Naruto nodded at this, as he turned to Stark and Peter. Sorry, Peter, but he pulled that hostage shit, and I saw a way to end it quickly, he said simply. You brought a kid with you? Strange asked in disbelief. He more stowed away, Stark said with a shrug. Yeah, he was stubborn in saving you, Naruto said firmly to Strange. Plus, I'm 16. I'm Peter, by the way, Peter said with a wave. Dr. Strange, Strange said with a nod. Oh, we're using our made-up names. Then I'm Spider-Man, Peter said. Strange looked at Peter with a flat look at this, while Naruto snickered and Tony went to the controls of the ship. Any ideas on how to get home? Strange asked, as he walked over. It's on autopilot. But I'm thinking we actually go to confront this Thanos, instead of making Earth a battlefield, Tony said. No, I refuse to risk the time stone, Strange said with a firm tone. Okay, hold on. Can someone explain what the hell Thanos wants, and why he's doing all of this? Naruto asked, as he approached them. He doesn't know? Strange asked Stark with a raised eyebrow. We haven't talked since he and Sparky bailed to Wakanda, Stark said with a shrug. You made your choice backing Ross, Naruto said with a glare. I wanted to have some kind of accountability for us, damn it. You're the ones who just snapped and bailed after one asshole threatened you, Tony said with a scowl. Remind me to threaten your kid if you ever have one, then let's see you stay calm, Naruto yelled, getting in Tony's face. What? Whoa! Calm down, this isn't the time for this, Peter said, as he grabbed Naruto's shoulder. Strange nodded at this, before he explained the situation. Naruto's eyes widened at this information, and what Thanos was gonna do if he got all 6 stones. Funk, Kurama growled, as the idea of just killing half of all life was just insane, even to him. He's also doing it, as he has a thing for my mom. Well, in one timeline at least, Deathpool said, as she stepped out of a portal, which soon closed behind her. Deathpool, I'm not in the mood for, Naruto was saying, before getting cut off. Neither am I, Whiskers. But if you're gonna go confront old Scrotum Chin, you could use a wild card on this team, Deathpool said, as she twirled her scythe like a pro. Excuse me, but why would Thanos eradicate half of life for death? Peter asked curiously. And who the hell is this? Strange asked, gesturing to Deathpool. In order, the Purple Hulk thinks that killing half of life will get Mum to notice him, as a marriage gift or something. And I'm one of his many lovers, Deathpool said, as she wrapped her arms around one of Naruto's, while placing her head on his shoulder. You wish, Naruto said with an annoyed tone. Don't be that way, Whiskers. Will said you love a crazy chick, and there ain't no one crazier than me, Deathpool said. So, she's our Harley Quinn? Peter asked curiously. Ha! I love this kid, Deathpool said as she laughed, before she gave Peter a noogie. Let's just focus on not crashing the ship, Naruto said to Tony. Whatever you say, Puddin', Deathpool yelled happily, as she continued to give Peter a noogie. Fine. But know this, the stone is my priority, so I will let any of you die if it means keeping it safe, Strange said firmly. Oh, someone's a DC fan, Deathpool said with a fake scared tone. Is that your best Batman voice, Sherlock? I have a headache already, Tony said with a groan, as he went to the ship's controls. Suck it up, Doolittle. Hey, Nathan Drake. While I have you, you better not be a punk ass, and give up your friends later on. Deathpool yelled at Peter, while she held up her scythe in a threatening manner. Peter looked at Deathpool with a bewildered look at this, as Naruto pinched his nose, while shaking his head. With Will. Back on Earth, Will was with Okoye and Shuri meeting the ship that was landing outside the royal palace. Penny and Cosmo were nearby, while Chala approached the ship, which was letting off a lot of people. The Fantastic Four, the X-Men, Steve Rogers and Peggy, Falcon, Bruce, War Machine, Jennifer, Gwen, Matt, Luke Cage, Danny Rand, Jessica Jones and finally Bucky, who had a brand new metal arm. Should we bow? Bruce asked Sam curiously. Yeah, he's the king, Sam said with a nod. Chala and the others approached, and Bruce bowed his head. That is not necessary, Chala said with a smile at Bruce. Sam snickered at this, along with Jessica, Jennifer, and Johnny. So, this is where you all ran off to, Susan said to Will, as she approached with Penny and Cosmo behind her. Well, Captain B-Fed gave us little choice. It was either this or we crash with the Guardians, and I'm not sharing a bunk with Rocket or Drax, Will said with a grin. Will the Guardians be joining us? Reed asked curiously. Yeah, you called in the cavalry, Sparky, you may as well call them, Logan said, as he looked at all the assembled heroes. I would have, if those punk asses didn't kidnap Nebula, since she is our only way to call them, besides Naruto, Will said with a scowl. Ah, she's adorable. Is this your kid? Rogue asked with a smile at Penny. Yup, this is her. She's my little genius, Will said with a smile. Really? What's her IQ? Reed asked curiously. No idea, but she made a mech on her own, Shuri said with a smile at Penny, who smiled back. This little miss made a mech? I don't believe it, Johnny said, shaking his head at this. Penny tapped her watch, and suddenly SP/DR dropped in front of them and stood over Johnny, with a glaring image on its display. Point made, Johnny said simply as his sweat dropped, as Penny smiled while Will patted her on the head. So, how did things go in New York? Chala asked, as they all entered the palace. Well, I fought one of Thanos' so-called kids as the Hulk, Bruce said with a shrug. You call that a fight, cuz? You went kinda extra on him, by snapping both his arms before Wong sent him to Siberia, Jennifer said with a chuckle. Yeah, the big guy and Naruto talked, and apparently he has an axe to grind with Thanos, Bruce said with a sheepish chuckle. Well, you are all here now, and we need to figure out a way to deal with this, Chala said, as Will placed Loki's staff on the table, which had the Mind Stone in its head. Thanos' army will be after this, and will burn this planet to cinders to get it, Bruce said firmly. What's his plan for these stones? Steve asked curiously. Bruce sighed at this, as he knew this was gonna take a bit to explain. One explanation later. Everyone was shocked at the explanation of what Thanos had planned. That's messed up, Peggy said with wide eyes. Way to go dragging us into a world-ending conflict, Red Luke said with a sigh. He's just gonna kill half of all life in the universe, to save resources? Storm asked Bruce. Why doesn't he use the stones to, oh I dunno, make us have an infinite supply of resources? Jessica asked with a scowl. He's a war-mongering killer. Best to focus on dealing with him, and keeping this away from him, Bruce said firmly, as he gestured to the Mind Stone. Okay, let's do this, Thing yelled, as he raised his fist over the stone, and smashed it down on the Mind Stone. But the stone just sent Thing flying, and crashing into a wall. It ain't gonna be that easy, as this thing is made of cosmic power, Cosmo said to everyone, before he explained how they came into the universe. Ugh, noted Thing groaned, as he got up and held his head. The alarm suddenly went off, getting everyone's attention. Brother, we have several ships entering Earth's atmosphere above Wakanda, Shuri said, as she held out her kimono beads, showing a holographic image of a few ships. Well, we better not keep our guests waiting. Let's go give them a warm Earth welcome, Will said with a hard look. Everyone went to leave, but Will stopped Penny from following them. Not happening, sweetie. Cosmo, you stay here and keep her safe, Will said firmly, before looking at Cosmo. Cosmo nodded at this, while Penny looked annoyed at the fact she couldn't help. You will have your day someday, Squirt, Jessica said, as she tousled her hair. Later, outside. Everyone stood outside, ready to fight alongside the army of Wakanda and Baku's army, as they watched Thanos' army land and approach the shield, trying in vain to get through it. They noticed that some got through, but either had limbs getting cut off or died in the process. Well, at least they are committed, Gambit said, as he twirled a playing card in his hand. They are checking for weaknesses around the barrier, Reed said, seeing some of the enemy heading to the side. Chala nodded at this and tapped his earpiece. Shuri, let them in, he said. Good idea. We can keep them here, and keep them from sneaking in, Cyclops said, as he nodded in approval. The barrier then opened and the minions of Thanos charged in. Wakanda forever! Chala yelled out, as his men charged at the enemy. Next year in Jerusalem! Deadpool yelled, as he took out his pistols and fired at the enemy, nailing them in the head. How the hell did you get in here, Wade? Logan yelled, as he slashed out the throat of a minion, before punching another one. Yeah, I didn't call you! Will yelled out, as she zipped around and stabbed several of the enemy with a Chidori, before she threw some lightning needles at some charging minions, nailing them in the head. Oh, Author-san said that I could help out, Deadpool said happily, as he took his katanas out and sliced some of the minions. Cyclops was blasting them with his optics, while Storm used her weather powers on them, and Jean was sending the enemy flying with her telekinesis. Johnny, War Machine and Falcon were flying around and attacking the enemy from afar. Susan was using her shields to crush the enemy, as Reed was slugging them hard in the face while making his fist huge. Oi, Elastic Man! Make sure you yell out Gum Gum Giant Pistol when you do that! Deadpool shouted, as he ran by while shooting at Thanos' army. Ha! I told you that manga had good ideas, Reed! Johnny yelled, as he fired some blasts at the enemy. I must admit, comic books do have intriguing ideas, Reed said with a chuckle, before he swung his leg, which stretched and knocked over a group of minions. Oh, and there's the Gum Gum Whip too, Deadpool said, as he choked a minion with a belt. Go to sleep, damn it! He yelled at the struggling minion, before he stabbed it in the head with his katana. Kitty used her powers to phase the opposing army into the ground, while Gambit threw exploding cards at them, with Kurt using his teleporting powers to send them high in the air. Colossus and Beast were easily beating up Thanos' army, while Negasonic, Teenage Warhead and Yukio were working together. Hi, Wade! Yukio said happily as she waved at Deadpool, while she electrocuted some minions with her electric chains. Hi, Yukio! Deadpool yelled, as he stabbed a minion with a crayon to the eye, before he cut another's head off with his katana. Daredevil was attacking the enemy with his twin sticks, while Jessica slugged one in the throat, before grabbing him by his jaw and ripping his head in half. Luke was simply ripping Thanos' men in half, with Danny using his iron fist to punch their heads in. Laura was cutting her way through the enemy along with Logan, while Rogue was manhandling the bigger brutes easily, throwing one at a swarm of little ones, crushing them. Hulk was tossing any aside that he found, while crushing them with his fists and feet, when he saw Black Dwarf attacking some Wakandan warriors. That guy looks like he wants a second round with his new arms, cuz. Let's see if the two of us can deal with him for good, Jennifer said, as she cracked her knuckles. Hulk grunted in agreement, before he and Jennifer charged at Black Dwarf. With Naruto. Naruto and the others were sitting in the ship, waiting for the ship to arrive at its destination. Suddenly the ship shook as what looked like a hole appeared in the ship and Star-Lord flew in, followed by Drax, Mantis and Howard, and attacked Tony, Strange, Peter and Deathpool. Well, it's a Star-Lord. Wahoo! Deathpool said with a bad Italian accent, as she reflected Star-Lord's blasts with her scythe. Ah! Don't lay eggs in my mouth! Peter yelled, seeing Mantis, before he crawled away from her. Mantis frowned at this, before Naruto landed behind her, causing her to turn to look at him. Naruto! Mantis yelled in surprise, before she hugged him happily. Hey Mantis, Naruto said with a smile, as he patted her on the head, making her smile more. Strange's cloak flew over to Drax and wrapped around his head, before dragging him to the floor. Die, evil cloak of death, Drax yelled out, as the cloak bashed his head against the ground. Howard blasted at Strange, who made an energy shield to protect himself. Tony and Star-Lord flew through the air, blasting at each other, before Star-Lord landed behind Peter and grabbed hold of him, while Tony landed near Drax and aimed his repulsor at him. Okay everybody, chill the funk out, Star-Lord said, as he kept a blaster aimed at Peter's head. He then made his helmet disappear, and aimed his blaster at Tony. Now I'm only gonna ask you this once, where the hell is Gamora? Yeah, okay, I'll do you one better. Who the hell is Gamora? Tony asked in confusion, as he made his helmet recede. No, I'll do you one better. Why the hell is Gamora? Drax asked. Will you all shut the funk up? Naruto yelled, as he and Mantis approached, getting their attention. Naruto! Help us with this robot and his evil cloak! Drax yelled. What are you doing here, Whiskers? Howard asked, lowering his shotgun. Am I drunk, or is that a talking duck? Tony asked Naruto. Naruto ignored this and looked at Star-Lord. Quill, let him go. We're going after Thanos, and could use the help of competent heroes. Do you know any? He asked him with a pointed look. Star-Lord looked at Naruto, then the others before he let Peter go. Let me guess, Thanos has Gamora? Naruto asked Mantis, who nodded at this. Rocket and Groot took off with Thor to help him get a weapon that can kill Thanos, Howard said. Wait, you know Thor? Peter asked in surprise. Yeah. Not very good looking. Who needed our help, Quill said with a scowl. Figures he would go with him, instead of towards Thanos, Naruto said with a sigh. We're coming up on wherever this ship is heading, Tony yelled from the controls. Okay, who knows how to fly this thing? Strange asked. The Guardians all shrugged at this. Take cover! Whiskers and Roxette, hide with me! Deathpool yelled, as she grabbed Naruto and Mantis, and hid behind some controls. Who's the crazy chick? Quill asked Tony curiously, as they all took cover. After the crash, everyone got out of the ship and looked around at the planet. Wow, the stories didn't do Titan justice, Howard said, as he looked around with wide eyes. The gravity here is really bad, Naruto said, as Mantis and Deathpool jumped around, showing the gravity was indeed low. Okay, we need to make a plan for when Thanos arrives, Tony said to everyone. Who put you in charge? Star-Lord asked curiously, as he scowled. Quill, if you're serious about this, then don't be a moron and lead your team, Naruto said with a hard tone. Star-Lord scoffed at this but nodded, knowing Naruto was right, but his thoughts of Gamora was making him nuts. Okay, what stones does Thanos have so far? Tony asked. Power, space, and reality. He took Gamora since she knew where the Soul Stone is, Star-Lord said. We're all gonna die. Deathpool screamed after a few moments of silence, and started to run around in a panic. Leave it to the crazy one to say what we're all thinking, Howard said with a sigh, as he finished his cigar before tossing it away. Woman, will you calm the funk down? Drax yelled at Deathpool. Funk you, Batista! Deathpool yelled, as she pulled her scythe and twirled it around, before she pointed it at Drax. Deathpool, save the crazy for Thanos and I'll take you out on a date, Naruto said. Yee! You got a deal, Whiskers! Deathpool yelled happily, before she sat down. Mantis pouted at this, before Naruto patted her on the head. Yes, you'd get one too, Naruto said with a smile at Mantis. Mantis smiled at this, but paused as she looked over Naruto's shoulder. Is he supposed to be doing that? She asked, as she pointed at Strange. Everyone else looked over, and saw that Strange was hovering in the air with his legs crossed, and green energy around his hands, necklace and head, while his head twitched about, leaving blurs as it did. "Yo Doc, you okay?" Deathpool asked, as she poked him with her finger like a curious child. Strange stopped floating and fell to his knees, gasping for breath as he did. "What were you up to?" Naruto asked curiously. "I was using the stone to forward in time, to view alternate futures. To see all the possible outcomes of the coming conflict," Strange said, as he sat down. "How many did you see?" Star-Lord asked curiously. 14,605,000, Strange said. "And how many did we win?" Stark asked, almost dreading the answer. "One," Strange said with a firm tone of voice. This got silence from everyone, as this was really bad odds against them. "Oh, we are so funked," Howard said with a groan. "Not yet. Come here, Whiskers, I'm not dying a virgin!" Deathpool yelled, as she grabbed Naruto by his shirt and tried to drag him behind some rubble. "Woman, get off me! We have a situation!" Naruto yelled at the Mad Merc's daughter. "Back in Wakanda. There's too many of them!" Peggy yelled, as she threw her shield at one of the minions, causing it to ricochet about from one minion to another, before returning to her hand. "Well, I've always said I can do this all day, now let's see if I really can," Steve joked, as he and Chala fought together against a few minions. A blast of rainbow energy hit the area, causing some of the minions to get knocked to the ground. "Cue the Avengers theme music!" Deadpool yelled out, as a large hammer with an axe on the other end came spinning out, and knocked some of Thanos' minions over, before returning to where it came from, as Thor, Rocket, and Groot came out of the rainbow light, which then disappeared. This brought a smile to everyone, as they all cheered. "Well, looks like they're screwed now," Natasha said with a smirk. "We haven't won yet. Keep fighting!" Will yelled, as she threw a lightning bolt at a group and vaporized them all. "Bring me Thanos!" Thor yelled out, as he walked then ran towards the opposing army, with Groot and Rocket behind him, both yelling out. Thor then jumped into the air covered in lightning, before bringing his weapon down with a yell, causing lightning to cover the ground and take out a few of the minions. Back with Naruto. Naruto and Deathpool were sitting on a structure across from Strange, as he sat and waited for Thanos to arrive. "Remember, try to help give Mantis an opening to subdue him," Naruto whispered to Deathpool, as a portal opened and Thanos walked out, before it closed behind him. Naruto then scowled, as he noticed that Thanos now had 4 stones on his gauntlet. "Looks like Gamora is banking with Mom now," Deathpool said. Naruto looked at Deathpool with a raised eyebrow at this. "To get the Soul Stone, you have to give up someone you care about, and he left with Gamora, so it's either her or Nebula," Deathpool said. Naruto's eyes widened at this, before he clenched his fists, as he didn't know what to hope for in this situation. "Downey Jr. is attacking Babe," Deathpool said as she pointed out Tony, who was pushing a massive piece of a ship down at Thanos, seemingly crushing him. Before the building turned into a swarm of space bats, and started to chase Tony, while the Guardians, Strange and Peter attacked Thanos. "Make him bleed, Babe," Naruto growled out at Deathpool, as he went into Sage mode. "As Papa Deadpool says, maximum effort," Deathpool bellowed, as she shot at Thanos with her scythe. She started to swing her scythe at the Mad Titan, slashing at him, which he blocked. She soon swung down at Thanos, who caught it with the power of the Space Stone. "Hey! My scythe, One-Eyed Willy!" Deathpool yelled, as she tried to get it loose, before she was sent flying by a blast from the Power Stone, sending her into some rubble. "I'm okay," she yelled, before some more fell on her. "Less okay," she groaned out, with her hand twitching slightly. "Pathetic," Thanos said before he spotted Naruto approaching him. "Uzumaki," he said, as he readied his gauntlet. "Nice to know you remember me," Naruto said, as he pulled out some kunai. "I remember all that catch my interest." Plus, my daughter Nebula kept mumbling your name, while I had her tortured, Thanos stated. Naruto growled as his body surged with Kurama's power, before he charged at the Mad Titan, ready to kill him. Planet Titan. On the planet Titan, Naruto and the other heroes were clashing with Thanos, who was easily fighting them off with his gauntlet, which had 4 of the Infinity Stones. Strange was making sling ring portals around Thanos, letting Peter and Deathpool jump out of the portals and attack him, before falling through another portal to avoid him. Magic kick again! Peter was yelling, before Thanos grabbed him, and slammed him on the ground, annoyed at this. Insect, Thanos said with an annoyed tone. Technically, spiders aren't insects, Peter said, as he tried to get free. Marco! Deathpool yelled out, as she slashed at the back of his legs, causing Thanos to yell, before he backhanded her away with his gauntlet, using the Power Stone to power his attack. Suddenly, a ship shot down at them from the sky, and before it could crash into them, Peter grabbed Deathpool and got them out of the way, letting the ship hit Thanos. Thanks for the save, Nathan Drake, Deathpool groaned out, as she held her head, which was healing after Thanos' attack. Naruto sensed a familiar aura coming from the crashed ship, but before he could react, Thanos made his way out of it and glared at him. But before he could raise his gauntlet, Nebula jumped out of the crashed ship and swung a shock baton at his face. You should have killed me when you had the chance, Nebula said with a glare at her father. It would have been a waste of parts, Thanos yelled, as he attacked Nebula. But before he could clash with Nebula, Naruto slammed into him with a Raisin Shuriken, which soon exploded and sent Thanos flying into some rubble nearby. Whoa! That's you when you're mad, I'm guessing? Peter asked curiously, with a nervous tone. More or less, kid, Naruto said with a shrug, as he looked at Nebula. Focus, Nebula said firmly. I love you too, babe, Naruto said with a chuckle, at her trying to act tough. Now! Strange yelled, as he made several portals appear, letting the others out to grab the dazed Thanos, while Mantis grabbed his head, putting him in a trance with the tips of her antennae glowing, with Thanos' eyes getting all cloudy. Hurry, his will is very strong, Mantis said, with a lot of strain in her voice. Working on it, Peter said, as he and Tony tried to get the gauntlet off Thanos' hand. Ha, I told you this would work. Oh, and this was my plan, by the way, Quill said with a grin. As he approached Thanos, okay asshole, where is Gamora? My Gamora, Thanos said with a slight monotone. Don't give me that shit. Where is she? Quill yelled out. He mourns, Mantis said, as she frowned as she felt his emotions, as she knew what had happened. What does this monster have to mourn? Drax asked, as he struggled to help keep Thanos down. Howard, who had his gun on Thanos, looked at Naruto and Nebula, who simply nodded at him, before he scowled, as he took aim at Thanos, ready to kill him. Peter gained a look of realization at this, while Tony looked at him. Quill, stay focused. We almost have this thing off. He yelled at him. No, tell me you didn't, Quill said to Thanos, trying to stay calm. Theon said nothing, as he groaned, fighting against Mantis' control. Asshole! Tell me you didn't, Quill yelled in Thanos' face. I had to do what was necessary, Thanos said. No. God damn it! No! Quill yelled, as he slugged Thanos in the face. You fucking idiot! Naruto yelled, as he grabbed Quill, keeping him back from Thanos. It's coming off. It's coming, it's nearly off, Peter said, as the gauntlet began coming off Thanos' hand. Thanos' eyes turned back to normal, as he got loose and growled as he threw Drax and Tony off, pulled the gauntlet away from Peter, and threw Mantis away from him. Naruto jumped and caught Mantis, while Thanos put the gauntlet back on and fired at the charging heroes, sending them to the floor in a heap. He then charged the power and space stones, and looked at a moon in space, before he destroyed it and threw the debris of the moon down at them, all sending them all flying. Naruto went flying, trying to grab who he could. "Kid, I usually don't say this, but we can't win," Kurama said with an angry tone, as he knew while he and Naruto were very powerful, and could probably take on 1 or 2 of these stones, taking on 4 of them was impossible, even for them. Back in Wakanda. "Come get some, space dogs!" Rocket yelled out, as he shot at Thanos' army, with Bucky next to him. Bucky then saw a lot more running towards him and Rocket, so he grabbed hold of Rocket's vest and lifted him up, before he spun around, with them both still shooting. "Come get some, you dogs, come get some!" Rocket yelled, as Bucky spun around, before Rocket fell back to the ground, once they'd taken out the horde that attacked them. "Hey, how much for the gun?" Rocket asked Bucky curiously. "Sorry, not for sale," Bucky replied, as he kept shooting. "Okay, then how much for the arm?" Rocket then asked. Bucky just gave him a deadpan look, before he ran off. "Oh, I'm gonna get that arm," Rocket said with a chuckle, before he too ran off. Meanwhile, Thor was using his new weapon to either knock any of the enemy flying, bashing them into the ground or cutting them to pieces, while Steve and Peggy were fighting nearby. "New haircut?" Steve asked, as he caught his breath from the brief pause they had in the fight. "Maybe you should copy my beard?" Thor asked with a chuckle. "I don't think so," Peggy said with a shake of her head, before they began fighting again. "I think we need some more help," Okoye said, as she used her spear to kill a few of the creatures. "On it, Auntie!" Penny's voice yelled over the comm, before suddenly Black Bolt, Medusa, Crystal, Karnak, Gorgon and Lockjaw appeared, before they ran off in different directions. Medusa used her long hair to rip the aliens apart, while Gorgon used his hooves to create seismic waves to send them flying. Crystal made various elements appear, which she used to kill them as Karnak hit them in certain areas, taking them down. Black Bolt, meanwhile, took a deep breath, before he simply said leave, causing a shockwave to come from his mouth, and destroyed the creatures easily. "Black Bolt?" Peggy said in surprise as she used her shield to defend herself from attack. "Wait, you know him?" Will asked, as she zapped a few of the aliens. "Yes. In my world, we were once part of a group called the Illuminati," Peggy said with a nod, as she kicked and punched the aliens away. "Compare notes later. We have some big ones coming," Logan yelled, as what looked like massive wheels were charging at them all. "Not good," Wanda said with wide eyes. Polaris glared at this, before her eyes and hands glowed green at this, which caused the wheels to stop in their tracks. "Okay, you're way hotter now," Will said with a chuckle at Polaris, before she snapped her fingers, making some sparks erupt and engulf the wheels. "Now attack your fellow aliens, and turn them into hamburgers," she yelled at the wheels. "What do we get out of it?" One of the wheels asked. "How about knowing you're defying a punk-ass cuck, who thinks he's worthy of death?" Deadpool asked. "Sold," the wheels all yelled, before Polaris dropped them, so they could attack the alien army, who all ran away, but didn't get far, as Thor and Wakandan ships followed them and killed the alien creatures, along with destroying the vessels that brought them. "Not bad," Wade Logan said with a chuckle at this, as he didn't expect Deadpool of all people to get results like this. "Ah shucks, it's no problem. Oh, by the way, Jackman, are you happy to be in my third movie?" Deadpool asked, as he shot at some of the aliens. "And you just made it weird again," Logan said before he ran off. "Hey, I lasted 3 minutes. That's a record for me." "I wouldn't say that. You suck, Author-sama," Deadpool yelled out, as he looked at the sky. Meanwhile, unseen to the heroes Proxima, a child of Thanos was talking into her earpiece. "The stone is unguarded, take it," she said with a firm voice. "With pleasure," a male voice said before the comm went silent. with Shuri. Inside the palace, Shuri was in the lab with lots of staff, along with Penny and Cosmo. I don't like not being out there helping, Penny said, as she sat in her seat. Penny, you're too young to fight aliens like these, Cosmo said, as he scratched his ear, before he paused and growled at the door. What is it? Shuri asked, as she grabbed her gauntlets and put them on, as they heard yelling and fighting outside the door. Penny quickly touched her kimono beads, as the door was kicked open, showing a gray-skinned alien walking in, who had a spear type of weapon while wearing a hooded robe. I am Corvus Glaive, and you will hand over the stone for my father, he growled out. Not happening, Shuri said with a hard tone, as she powered up her gauntlets. Glaive attacked Shuri, who fired at him, before he batted her away, and made his way to the staff. But he was stopped in place by Cosmo, before he glared at the dog. Don't think you can stop me, fool. My fellow child of Thanos is much more powerful than you, he said with a sneer, before he forced himself free and struck Cosmo with the flat end of his staff, sending him flying. Before he could grab the staff, the window shattered and SP/DR swung in and grabbed the staff right from under his fingers. Not today, Baka! Penny yelled from inside the mech, before she swung out the window. Get back here, you impudent child! Glaive yelled, as he ran after her. This child is smarter than you, Penny mocked, as she swung off towards the forest outside the palace. Damn it! Alert! We have an emergency. The enemy is after the stone. Send backup to the forest outside the palace. Shuri yelled into her earpiece. I'm on it. Who am I backing up? Will asked over the earpiece. That would be your daughter, Shuri said with a sigh. She swiped the stone with her mech and took off with it, Cosmo said, as he got up and shook himself. What? If one hair on her head is harmed, I'll rip off his arms and beat him to death with the wet ends. Will roared out. You know, I kinda want to see that, Deadpool said over the communicator. Shut the hell up, Wade, and go help back that kid up, Logan yelled out. Okay, but only so that she'll see me as a cool grandpa. Hang on, sweetie, I'm coming, Deadpool yelled out. You're more of an uncle, that's forbidden to be alone with kids. Now go on, get, Will yelled out. With the Hulks. Meanwhile, Hulk and She-Hulk were still fighting Black Dwarf, with the three of them having a few wounds, as Black Dwarf was swinging his weapon about, keeping the two of them from getting close. Okay, asshole, we have to wrap this up and go help my niece. So why don't you, Jennifer was saying, before SP/DR swung past them, with Glaive close behind her. Black Dwarf roared at this, and went to go help pursue the spider mech, but was tackled into a rock wall by Hulk and Jennifer, who both started to lay down punches into him. Jennifer grabbed his robot arm, and with a roar crushed it, before Hulk grabbed Black Dwarf by his neck and snapped it with an audible snap, then dropped his lifeless body on the ground. Hulk roared at his lifeless body at this, feeling good about gaining victory over a child of Thanos. Save it for later, cuz. We need to go save Penny, Jennifer said to him. Penny? Hulk asked with a head tilt. Naruto and Will's kid. She was in that spider mech, being chased by that other guy, Jennifer explained. Hulk paused at this, before he gained an angry look on his face, which was impressive. But before he could do anything, they heard a loud crack of lighting and an explosion nearby, and a scream of pain. Earlier with Penny, SP/DR was swinging through the trees, avoiding Glaive, who was trying to cut the mech with his weapon. Before he could take another swing, the mech fired some web in his eyes, blinding him. Gah! You will suffer for that, child! Glaive yelled, as he grabbed the webbing in his eyes, trying to get it out of his eyes. /Oh, my first villain threat /Penny said with a smirk from inside her mech, before a hole was blasted into the side of her mech, making it fall to the ground. Nearby, Proxima was standing on a tree branch, holding her staff like a sniper rifle and smirking, before she jumped down and approached the downed mech, which was still holding Loki's staff. "I get to kill her," Glaive growled, as he walked over with his weapon clenched in his hand. "But of course," Proxima said with a nod at this, as she let Glaive approach. Glaive raised his weapon above the mech, which Penny was trying to get out of, but before he could swing down his weapon. Squelch! Proxima's eyes widened in surprise as an arm covered in lightning was now sticking out of where Glaive's heart used to be, and behind him Will was standing there, her hair sparking and glaring at the now dead child of Thanos on her arm. Proxima gained a look of fury at this, and raised her weapon at Will. But in a burst of power, Will's exposed arm that was sticking out of Glaive's chest fired a massive amount of lighting at Proxima, vaporizing both her and the body of Glaive. "Don't touch me, kid," Will growled out, looking at the charred forest she left behind after her massive attack. While Penny stuttered out, as she finally got out of her destroyed mech, and looked at the destroyed forest, before she grabbed Loki's staff. Penny Will said with a firm tone, as she turned to her daughter. Sorry, Mom. But he was gonna take the stone," and Penny was saying, before Will pulled her into a hug. "Oh, thank God you're alright," Will said, as she hugged her close. Penny sighed in relief at this, as she hugged her mom back. "However, you're grounded for a week," Will said with a smile. "Ga," Penny said with a groan at this. "Whoa, who pissed you off, Sparky?" Jennifer asked, as she and Hulk ran over. "Two of Thanos' kids broke my kid's mech, so I sent them to hell where they belong," Will said with a smirk at Jennifer, before they fist bumped. "Don't worry, Penny, your cool grandpa is here," Deadpool said, as he dropped down from the treetops, while holding a gun in one hand and a katana in the other. "You're late, you idiot. I already killed them," Will said with a scoff at the mad merc. "Ah, hell. This means he will arrive soon, and break all our hearts," Deadpool yelled, as he grabbed his head in a panic, and began pacing about. Is he okay?" Penny asked Will and Jennifer with a raised eyebrow. "Not at all, so just ignore him, honey," Will said with a smile, as she patted her on the head. Before a portal nearby opened, getting their attention. "Oh, funk me!" Deadpool yelled out. "Language!" Will bellowed, as she glared at him, while covering Penny's ears. Earlier, back on Titan, Naruto was flying around the sky, avoiding falling debris, while carrying a knocked-out Nebula and Mantis, as Peter was swinging around and carrying a knocked-out Drax and Quill, with Tony flying alongside them, carrying Howard. Naruto noticed Strange was fighting Thanos now, and looked at Tony. "Come on, Tony, we can't let the magic man outdo us," he said. "Exactly what I was thinking. Kid, you get these guys to the ground safely," Tony said, before he looked at Peter. "On it, Mr. Stark," Peter said, as he used his webbing to make a big web to carry all 4 knocked-out Guardians. Naruto and Tony flew at Thanos, who had Strange in his hand and had grabbed his locket, but saw it was a fake. But before he could attack him again, Tony attacked him and made him drop Strange as Naruto grabbed him and got him away from Thanos. "You throw another planet at me, and I'm really gonna lose it," Tony said with an annoyed tone, as he took aim with his repulsors. "Stark," Thanos said with a firm tone. "Oh, so I'm famous even in space," Goody Stark said. "I make it a point to know the names of beings who are a cut above their species," Thanos said, before he looked at Naruto, who went into full Kurama Sage mode, before he shot at Thanos. "Come on!" he yelled at Naruto, who tried to slam a Rasengan into him, but Thanos caught it and stopped it in place with the power of the Space Stone, before he slugged Naruto in the face, sending him flying back thanks to the power of the Power Stone. Tony flew at Thanos and started to exchange blows with him, but Thanos just kept destroying his armor the more the fight went on, and eventually he grabbed Tony's arm when he tried to stab him with the blade and broke it off, and stabbed him with it in the side. "I hope your planet remembers you, Stark," Thanos said, before he raised his gauntlet to aim it at Tony, which started to glow. "Wait!" Strange yelled, getting Thanos' attention. "Spare our lives, and I'll give you the Time Stone," Strange said with a defeated sigh, as he caught his breath. "No tricks, Wizard," Thanos said, as he aimed the gauntlet at him. Strange nodded at this, as he held out his hand, and made what looked like a green stone appear in between his fingers. Thanos held out his hand, and the stone flew to him, which he caught and placed on the Infinity Gauntlet, which caused him to shout out, as it surged with the power of another stone. "Only one more to go," Thanos said with a grin, as he looked at the last empty spot on the gauntlet. Before he was fired upon by Quill and Howard, who were now back on their feet, along with the other Guardians, who were running towards them. Thanos didn't react to this, besides activating the Space Stone and making a quick portal away, leaving the planet. "Where did he go?" Quill yelled in frustration, as he removed his mask and looked around. "My guess is Earth," Naruto groaned, as he walked over, causing Nebula and Mantis to run over to him, to check on him. Tony used some ice spray to seal up his wound, before looking at Strange. "Why did you do that?" he asked him. Before Strange could answer, there was a crack of lightning, which got everyone's attention. "What was that?" Quill asked. "I'm not sure," Nebula said, with a shake of her head. Strange took a few breaths, before he looked at everyone. "We're in the endgame now," he said. "On Earth." Thanos walked out of the portal, and looked at Will, Hulk, Jennifer, Deadpool and Penny with an emotionless look. "Is that him, big man?" Will asked, as her hands sparked with electricity. Hulk growled at this and nodded, as he clenched his fists. Thanos then looked at Penny, who still had Loki's staff in her hands. "I'll be taking that, child," he said firmly. But before he could move, he was attacked by Falcon, Bucky and War Machine, who were raining fire on him, while the rest of the other heroes were arriving. "Rain down the dogs of war!" Deadpool yelled, as he fired his SMGs at the Mad Titan. But the Mad Titan easily reflected all of the bullets, and sent all of the heroes firing at him flying into the rocks nearby. "Punk ass!" Deadpool groaned out. Thanos started to walk towards Penny, but his way was blocked by the Hulk and Jennifer. "Out of my way, before I crush you again," Thanos said, as he held up the Infinity Gauntlet. Hulk roared at this, and threw a punch at Thanos along with Jennifer, but he sent them both flying with a blast of the Power Stone. Black Bolt reared back his head and got ready. "Everybody get clear!" Peggy yelled out, as everyone got out of Black Bolt's way. "Die!" Black Bolt roared, unleashing a powerful shockwave that rocked the entire area. Thanos held up both his arms, as he felt the impact of the shockwaves as the ground underneath him began to crack and fill up with fissures, his footing lost as he was pushed away, crashing into a nearby wall. "Light him up!" Johnny shouted, as he unleashed a stream of fire upon Thanos. Scott yanked off his visor, firing off a massive ruby energy blast at Thanos, while Rocket fired off some missiles. Jean got beside Black Bolt, pushing back with her own psychic powers. "Sue!" Reed shouted out, as Sue held up her hands, creating a barrier following around the attacks, trapping Thanos inside, resulting in a powerful explosion. Sue started to bleed from her nose, from the strain of the shield. When the shield fell, Thanos walked out with a hard look on his face, as what looked like a black hole was hovering above the gauntlet, which had absorbed all of the attacks that they had just thrown at him, which he just turned into dust with the Reality Stone. Before they could attack again, they were all sent flying by a blast of the Space Stone, as Thanos kept walking towards Penny. "Hey, that's cheating, you punk-ass cheater!" Deadpool yelled out from the ground, as he healed. "He obviously doesn't care, you moron, Will said, as Sue stayed near Painey. Peggy and Steve ran over and threw their shields at him, which caused him to stumble a bit. Once the two of them were close enough, they began punching and kicking him, working together as they did. Thanos then tried to grab them, but they each stopped his hands from reaching them, before Thanos lifted his arms up and threw them out to the side, sending Steve and Peggy flying. Thanos was then punched by Thing, while Iron Fist and Daredevil both kicked his skull. Logan charged at Thanos with a roar, fiercely slashing into his chest, causing his purple blood to spray out from the wound. Rogue came flying in, punching Thanos in the face, sending him upwards, before Gwen webbed him up and pulled him back down, causing him to crash into the ground. Luke and Thing rushed in next, ramming into Thanos, smashing him into a nearby rock wall, as Thing quickly lifted a rock, smashing it down onto the Mad Titan. Jean quickly lifted Thanos off the ground, as Cyclops fired off a beam upwards, blasting him into the air. Sue narrowed her eyes, giving a loud scream, causing Thanos to hold his chest in pain, as he felt something was growing inside of him. Thing, Luke, Jessica, Iron Fist, Daredevil and Logan all surrounded him and started a merciless barrage pounding into him. Thanos had enough of this, and clenched his fist, unleashing a powerful shockwave, blasting everyone away. I have to say, I didn't expect you to do this much damage to me. Perhaps I humored you too much, Thanos said, as his fist glows red before punching Luke Cage with the back of his fist, sending him flying back, grinding into the ground while kicking away Thing, smashing him into a nearby boulder. Logan roared as he lunged at him, but the Mad Titan grabbed hold of his arm and slowly started to bend it downward, causing Logan to scream out in pain, as he felt his bones starting to break, even with the adamantium covering his bones. Daredevil jumped at Thanos and swung his billy club at his head, but Thanos grabbed him and threw him into Jessica and Gwen, sending them all into the dirt. Storm clouds found their presence in the sky, as a bolt of lightning shot downwards at Thanos, who flipped his finger, causing that bolt of lightning to turn into harmless bubbles. The power over the very weather itself, and this is all you can do, Thanos said, as he looked up at Storm with an unimpressed look, before he fired a yellow blast at her, hitting her and sending her into the dirt too. Painey, get out of here, now! Will yelled before she charged her body with lightning and charged at Thanos, and in an instant, she was behind Thanos, ready to stab him with a Chidori. But she suddenly stopped, as she was covered in a green aura. Speed means nothing to me, when time is on my side, Thanos said, as he showed the glowing time stone on his gauntlet, before he started to walk towards Painey again. Crystal used some earth to pull the staff out of Painey's hands, and threw it to Lockjaw. Get it as far away from here as possible, she said to him. Lockjaw nodded at this, but before he could teleport away with the staff, Thanos' arm appeared in a mini portal, and grabbed the staff, before pulling it through the portal, which soon closed. Finally, Thanos said, as he destroyed the crystal part of the staff and grabbed the yellow stone and pulled it out of the staff and placed it on the gauntlet. But just as he did, he was attacked by Thor with Stormbreaker, who sent lightning down at him, before he threw his weapon. Thanos fired a large beam of energy from his gauntlet, hoping to slow Stormbreaker down from reaching him, but it kept going, until it slammed into his chest. Thor landed in front of Thanos and pushed his blade into his stomach, making him yell in pain. I told you would die for that, Thor said with a glare at Thanos. You should have gone for the head, Thanos said with a smirk, before he snapped his fingers, causing a flash of light to appear. No! Will yelled, as she felt a lot of power go off from the gauntlet. With Naruto. Naruto's sage senses were going haywire, as he felt something really bad was happening. Something is happening, Mantis said, as she looked around. Mantis? Naruto asked, as he saw that her hands were starting to turn to dust. Mantis looked at her hands, and her eyes widened, before she frowned as she tried to hug Naruto, then she was gone as if never there at all. Ah hell, looks like I got tails. See you at endgame, Whiskers, Deathpool groaned out, as she walked over to Naruto, before she fell and turned into a burst of ash. Naruto's eyes widened at this, before he clenched his fists in a rage, as he knew this was most likely not the last friend, who he would be losing like this. Quill? Drax asked his leader, as he looked at his hand and saw it was gone, before he too disappeared. Ah crap, Howard growled out, as he too was fading away into nothing. Quill, are you alright? Tony asked, as he looked at the space hero. Ah man, Quill said with a groan, as he too turned to dust. Tony, there was no other way, Strange quickly said, before he too turned into dust. Mr. Stark? Peter said, getting Naruto and Tony's attention. Peter was panting for breath. I don't feel so good, he said, as he staggered about. Tony quickly ran to Peter and hugged him, as Peter cried while he slowly started to turn to dust, before he fell to the ground. Sorry, Peter said, before he too turned to dust, leaving Tony in shock. Naruto looked around, and saw only him. Tony and Nebula were left now. Damn it, Naruto growled, as he clenched his fists, knowing that Thanos had actually done it. He did it. He actually did it, Nebula said, as she knelt on the ground. With Thor. Thor looked at Thanos, who was now holding a smoking infinity gauntlet. What did you do? He yelled out, before Thanos used the space stone to warp away, causing Stormbreaker to fall to the ground. Steve helped Peggy up, and looked around for the others, and saw Bucky and Falcon making their way to them. Steve? Bucky asked, before he turned to dust, along with Falcon. Okoye, who was sitting nearby, was slowly getting up, before Chala ran over to her. Come, this is no place to die, Chala said, as he grabbed her arm to pull her to her feet. But as he pulled her up, he turned to dust, shocking her. Logan held his mangled arm and looked around, and saw that his entire team was turning to dust, even Laura, who was looking at him with a determined look. Don't you dare give up, she said, before her head vanished into dust. Johnny looked around, and saw Thing, Susan and Reed turning to dust and looked shocked and in disbelief at this. Crystal looked at Medusa, as her and the other royal family and humans turned to dust, leaving her alone with Lockjaw. Rocket was with Groot, who was turning to dust. I am Groot, Groot groaned out, before he turned to dust. Rocket reached out to him, just as he turned to dust. Will was on the ground and Penny was running to her. But before either could reach each other, they both turned to dust, leaving Cosmo alone, who threw his head back and gave a mournful howl. Gwen took off her mask and looked around, as most of the gathered heroes were turned to dust, and saw that Jennifer and Jessica were turning to dust too. Not again, she said with a wince, as she thought about her lost dimension. So this part ends here. Alright, that's it for today's video, guys. Let me know in the comment section how was the story, and also don't forget to like, share and subscribe. I will meet you in another video. Bye bye.